Hi, I'm Chad, and you're watching Squarebody Stuff. Now, if you watched my last video, Creampuff hasn't moved. We've still got him up on the stands. In our last video, we put some exhaust on him. Actually, just kind of redone the exhaust that was already there. Added a crossover, replaced the rusty old glass packs with some fairly newish Flowmaster 40s that I've had kicking around the shop for a while. Actually, they were on this truck for a while. A couple years ago, then I took them off, replaced them with glass packs. Anyways, go watch that video, and if I remember while I'm editing, I'll put it up in the corner here. But now we've got to do some other maintenance on them. I've actually got a list on the board. Of course, here's the list when I pulled him in, what I decided I wanted to try to get done while I had him tore down. Exhaust, that's done. An oil change. Of course, I'll be rotating the tires. Check the transmission bolts, the pan bolts. They were seeping a little bit. I still got to do the wiper delay. A couple of videos ago, I went to a salvage yard and I found a couple wiper delay modules and a new switch to put him back the way he was from the factory. So then we also I got a small coolant leak. It's nothing big. I may or may not get to it this go round. I think part of it's my reservoir tank that leaks just a little bit. Not a big deal. But right now we're going to be working on the brakes. Now the brakes on this truck work okay. Originally it was ordered from the factory with manual brakes, which is kind of weird. I had power steering, Cheyenne package, which is just below Silverado, but it was ordered with manual brakes for whatever reason. But by the time I got the truck, somebody had already upgraded it with power brakes with the booster and everything. I don't know if it's aftermarket stuff or if they used parts off another truck. I have no idea. But I do remember when I first got the truck that the pedal, it just kind of, there's something weird about it. Well, they didn't get the nuts all the way tightened up on the firewall, so we got that done. But the brakes have just never felt right on this truck. And I'm thinking, I'm going to double check. I'm going to adjust the rear brakes, which I'll go through that. And I'm going to bleed them again, so we'll go through that. So I guess this could be a how to adjust and bleed your brakes on your Squarebody. Or it'll pretty much cover, this general stuff covers most vehicles without ABS and some with ABS. And as long as you got drum brakes. Little fun fact for you, if your automatic truck had manual brakes, it would have the small square brake pedal just like the manual transmissions. Just like that guy. Right now I'm just going to verify that my rear brakes are adjusted correctly, that my adjusters are working right, and that they're all bled out. Now the first thing I done is went around to every corner and made sure the bleeders broke loose and started soaking down lug nuts. Then I ran across my first big issue. Yeah, it's been kind of a little bit of a fight, and it's my own fault. I own the whole fight, but I learned a lesson. I'm gonna share it with you. So on the back of this truck, I've been running these spacers, which I have absolutely no issue with running spacers. Actually, these have been on this truck for close to 2 years, untouched, other than I check the torque on them every once in a while when I've had the wheels off. No big deal, but they haven't been off the truck for 2 years, or at least 2 years. My 2012 Duramax has got 2-inch spacers all the way around, and I've had them on there for years and years. My crew cab, my 84 crew cab, Squarebody, has spacers on the front. Running for years. I've run spacers probably for 20 years. But the issue I had with these spacers was not the spacers. It was the lug nuts that I chose to hold the spacers onto the hubs. These are those, well, these are actually Jeep, but it's not just a Jeep thing. These lug nuts that have the chrome cap that is crimped onto it. Well, trying to get them off of there, and they've been on there long enough, and even my anti-seize that I put on there didn't hold them. These caps started spinning, so I had to get a different socket. And then the socket I had was a 12 point. Because these are actually 20 millimeter once you get down to this part. And the only 20 millimeter socket I had was a 12 point. Well, they just tried to round them off. So I had to go into O'Reilly's, buy a 6 point 20 millimeter. And that still didn't want to break them loose. I had to put some heat on them. It was a little bit of a fight. But it was something I really didn't want to show you guys on camera. I got a little bit of a clip of it, but yeah, it was this fight, but I finally got the spacers off, and now I can continue on doing what I want to show you guys. So let's get to it. Enough rambling. First thing I gotta do is get the drum off, which the drums aren't too bad stuck on this truck, and I didn't have to back off the adjusters to get the drums off. There ain't much of a lip on here. Get them off and just check everything out. Everything's dry in here. There's a lot of brake dust. These shoes, I've already got the other side done and cleaned it up, checked them out. Looks like fairly new shoes. Now honestly, I can't remember for sure, but I think I replaced these shoes a couple years ago before we took our trip to Wisconsin to go to a truck show up there. But everything looks dry, looks good. Shoes have plenty of meat on them. Make sure your adjusters are free and moving. Yep, everything seems to be working there. Now I'll kind of clean this up. I'll take a wire wheel, clean the hub up, and before I put it back together, I'll put some anti-seize on there and the studs. But I'll clean all this up a little bit, blow it all out, and then I'll get the camera in here and kind of show you how this adjuster works a little bit. Before we get any further into this, I'm going to do a little bit of a plug. This product here is the Odelphi headlamp. Super handy. Now I'm not going to use it doing this because me doing camera, if I look at the camera then it blinds you guys. So I got these other lights, which are great too. But if you're interested in these things, this is probably the best headlight I have ever had. And I get a little bit of commission off of sales. But other than that, I'm just promoting a product that I love. I've really like this thing. Out of probably the dozen headlights that I've had in the last 15 years, this is the best one. It's comfortable, it's bright, and it just works. So go to the link below in the description, use that promo code, and go check them out. I think you'll like them. Now down here you've got your adjuster. You got to make sure it's free inside there. You can take them out or just buy new ones if they're seized up. And you got this wheel that is actuated by this arm. That's working on that spring that comes off this arm that's anchored up here and gets pushed backwards. And you can see what it does to that adjuster. You could also see, hopefully you can see that. Now I get my light right. Yeah, let me turn this light on, if it'll stay on. Now what you can see is that little wheel moving. As that arm comes down, it adjusts that wheel out. Now how to adjust them manually is some of your backing plates on the back side will have an access slot, just like what's on the outside of this drum. Now for some reason, all the trucks that I have here with the half ton, either the 10 bolt or the 12 bolt rear axles, all of the half tons I have don't have any holes in the backing plate from the factory to adjust it from the outside. You've got to pull the wheel off. Now everything looks good inside here. The adjuster's working free, so I'm going to go ahead and get it all gooped up with some anti-seize so my drums don't get seized on the hub. You can spread it all over the whole surface, but usually just around the hub is the worst part. And now you can go ahead and put some on the studs if you want to. However you want to do it. Kind of feel like Bob Ross here. Just anti-seizing up this happy little wheel stud. He serves a great purpose with all of his little friends, holding the wheels on that go round and round. If your drum has a big lip on the outside edge and it's hard to get off the shoes and stuff, you probably need new drums. But to get you by, and I've done it before, is I'll take a grinder or something and kind of grind that lip off. Don't get too deep inside there, but just get that lip out of there so you can get a little more life out of them, so you can either save up the money, get new drums, or figure something out. But these are in pretty decent shape. There's not a whole lot of lip on them. Go ahead and slide them back on there. I like to go ahead and put a couple lug nuts on the drum just to kind of get snugged up against the hub so it's not flopping around, to get you a better idea on your adjustment. You'll need to line up your drum with the adjuster wheel on the inside there. Now this is it's a cheap one. It's just a special brake adjuster tool. They come in different shapes and sizes. They're fairly inexpensive, but you can also use a flathead screwdriver or a small pry bar or something like that, whatever fits in there. And then you just need to remember which way your star wheel needs to turn to be able to adjust it. On this one, from the outside, going down, adjust that adjuster out. So get in there and just kind of feel, or I can look in there. And sometimes you can hear the clicking, sometimes you can't. This is the worst thing about the ones with the access hole on the drums, is you got to keep it right there. You can't just keep spinning it. As you're adjusting, you start feeling drag on it. That's what I like to do if there's an access hole on the back side from the backing plate. I like to adjust it and turn the wheel as I'm adjusting, so you start feeling the drag on it. But these aren't like that. I can't remember if I mentioned before, but I haven't done it on these. I probably will do it in the future. But the backing plates on Squeaky, the original rear end, the 12 bolt, I drilled holes in the backing plate so I can adjust it more conventionally. Starting to feel a little drag. Alright, now once you get a little bit of a drag on there, you don't want them too tight. You don't want them to where you can't move it, because that just wears your shoes down prematurely. Just get some good drag on there, and that's pretty much all there is to adjusting them. Now I've already got the other side done. Now we're going to move on to bleeding the brakes, and I'm going to show you how to do it, or how I do it, without an assistant. I've already went around and checked my bleeders to make sure they're free. And they're all broke free. That's probably one of the first things I do whenever I try to bleed brakes. That way, if you have a bleeder that either breaks off or whatever, you can get that problem out of the way. All my bleeders are broke free and loose, or not loose right now, but I just broke them loose, tightened them back up, just make sure they weren't seized. Next thing you'll need to do, make sure you got brake fluid. And if it's questionable on the quality of your brake fluid, the best thing to do is get several jugs of it, or get plenty of it, or a big jug of it. And while you're bleeding your brakes, try to run your reservoir almost all the way down. Don't run it completely dry, but run it almost all the way down and fill it with just a little bit of fresh fluid, or fill it all the way up, however you want to do it, whatever you feel comfortable with, to make sure you get all the old fluid out. And then keep bleeding them until the fluid coming out of the brake lines and the calipers is clean. Now, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. This fluid looks a little dark. I may go ahead and flush the system out and start fresh with new brake fluid. Now, I told you I broke the bleeders free. I didn't pull them all the way out to double check and make sure they were clear. This one's a little bit plugged up, probably just a little bit dirt because I didn't have any caps to put on them at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this bleeder out, clean it out, make sure it flows good, and then put it back in, and we'll start the process. I know I got the bleeder all cleaned out and flowing free. I put just a little dab of anti-seize on the threads just to keep it from hopefully getting stuck in the future. Go ahead and get this in there. And you can leave it loose for now if you want. Doesn't really matter. Now you might be thinking I'm going to use a vacuum pump, which I do have a vacuum pump because that's where I got this cup. But I don't seem to have a good luck with the vacuum pump. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. But the best thing to do is to use the tool or the pieces that come with the vacuum pump. This little guy here, which clips onto your bleeder, and this, which has a hose that goes down to the bottom. Now as you're pumping the fluid will go up this hose. And I like to have this as high as I possibly can, to where any air will just travel up it and go into here. Because if you have it like this and you're pumping the brakes manually, that air may get down to here and then you just keep sucking back up in there. And you never really get the air, you know, it'll eventually push out, but I like to just have it like this, have it up. And if your hose fits your bleeder, you could get just a piece of hose to stick on your bleeder and put a piece of, you know, a zip tie or something around it to hold it tight. But I'll put this on there, hang this jar up, and just pump the brakes real slow. Have the bleeder open and just pump the brakes real slow until this gets full. Alright, this will be my setup. I'll have this on there. It's got a good fit. My bleeder screw is loose. And I'll pump the brakes real slow and you'll see that fluid continually moving up, and it'll start filling this reservoir up. Now I'll try to show you the speed that I'm pumping this. You don't want to just constant. You want to go real nice and slow. Hold it for a few seconds. Come up real nice and slow. Of course, my pedal's got a little squeak to it that I just found out that's really annoying. But if the pedal was working in operation or operating correctly, it wouldn't have that much travel and probably won't have that squeak. But anyhow, just hold it for a few seconds. Back up, let it set for a few seconds. Back down. And you're just slowly working. If you had any air in your system, you're just slowly working it through. If you just pump, you're not giving it enough time to... You're just not giving it enough time. I don't know how to explain that, but this works the best for me if I'm by myself. You can see our can's a little over half full right now, and it's kind of dark. It should be almost clearish. So I'm going to go ahead and flush this out until I get clean fluid going into this. Another thing you could do, instead of trying to push all of this old fluid through the system until it's empty and then try to fill it back up, is you could go ahead and suck all the old fluid out if you have means to. I'm going to go ahead and just suck this dry. Get as much of the old fluid out of there as I possibly can. You can even take a rag in there and dry it completely out. Get all the old fluid out. And then start out with fresh. Now I'll take the rest of it. I'll get with a rag. Then I'll top it off with fresh. Then I'll pump my brakes manually with my hand or with my foot. However, it works pretty easy with these up on stands just to push it with my hand until I get fresh fluid coming out of the bleeder, and then I'll move on to the pasture side, and then I'll move to the back. Do the same thing. I'll go ahead and suck the back dry, fill it up with fresh fluid, and then start bleeding the back. Another thing I like to note is whenever you're filling up and doing this, use a brand new bottle of brake fluid that hasn't had the seal broken. Now, I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it. Topping off your brakes, you use a bottle of brake fluid you got laying around. A lot of times my trucks have a bottle of brake fluid sit here right here in the inner fender. We've all done it, but if you're going to be doing a refresh or a flush like this, start with brand new fluid. That way there's no water or no moisture, nothing in this thing, because brake fluid will draw moisture, and if it draws enough moisture, that's when you start getting air bubbles in your system. Possibly what happened to this thing, I don't know. But start with fresh fluid. If nothing else, to give you peace of mind, you got brand new fluid in your system. Got the fronts done, got the backs done. And I've got a better pedal than I've ever had in this truck. This video should have helped you how to adjust your rear brakes and bleed your brakes, the whole system, flush it out. I know I didn't show much on the back. The back's kind of hard to show because, you know, the bleeder's on the back side. But it's the same principle as the front. The big thing on the back is your reservoir is a lot smaller. So you can't pump it as many times before you run your reservoir low. So only pump it maybe 3, 4, 5 times. Check your reservoir. You do that until you get an idea of how many times you can pump it before you're getting too low. The front one, you got a really large reservoir, at least on this one. I know there's different reservoirs, different master cylinders for different trucks. But use your judgment. Bleed your brakes accordingly. But I want to try to show you guys a way to do it if you're by yourself, which I find myself in that position a lot of times. I could have went in. My wife would have been more than happy to help me out. But, you know, sometimes you're just by yourself and you got to do stuff on your own. So anyways, Creampuff's brakes are about as good a shape as they're going to get for right now. I'm going to put the wheels and tires back on him. And what else have we got on the list? Oh, wiper delay. That'll be another video. So go check that out, hopefully in the near future. Not sure when it's going to be. But until then, y'all keep your square bodies rolling, and we'll catch you later.